What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, arm yourselves, life stuff. And there are a few topics today. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of them. We'll start with Deathwalking as a concept. Deathwalking is a horror concept I put together for a psychic setting. On the outside, if a high level psychic is ascending, or a low level psychic has overextended and is dying, they start seizing and overheating to outside observers, but inside they start deathwalking. And deathwalking as a concept scares me because typically you aren't going to realize you're in it until you're almost at the end, and even if you're trained to look for it, it preys on your hope. Like True Detective. This can't be happening to me. I'm so fucking special. It preys on hope. Because you don't realize you've started the death walk. To you, even if on the outside you have frozen up, started seizing and overheating, you perceive, or you're living in your head by this point. You're in a matrix of your own creation. And you carry on with life as normal for however long. But then you start noticing things. Some things are amiss. People are acting weird, or stuff isn't where it's supposed to be. Things aren't happening the way you know they should be happening. And then you start noticing the symbolism. Everything is a symbol. Omens are inescapable. And then the imaginary world you are perceiving starts deteriorating. Like entering a deep winter. Nights lasting longer than they should. Shadows being more persistent against light than they should. People starting not even to pretend to be normal. And what you're doing is you are making peace, or not, before your car crashes. Either you die or you cease to be a human as we understand them. Regardless, you are being confronted. With what exactly? Well, your mortality ultimately, but what that means to you is going to be different for every person. It's almost like these symbols, these feelings, these concerns, these fears already existed in your waking life, but now in your own mind, nearing your death or your ascension, the fuzzy static of the mundane is melting away, and all you are left with are these terrors. The terror of death, the terror of unresolved whatevers. And by the time a normal person would realize this, or even a trained person would realize this, it's already over. There's no getting off the ride. All that's left for you is whatever you want to make or try to make of all these symbols and feelings, and then death. And I like this concept even if I don't use it where I thought I was going to, because sometimes you have days or weeks you feel like you are death walking. The world becomes increasingly symbolic. Synchronicities are firing off so frequently and so potently you can't ignore them. Add to that a feeling of creeping dread, like you have started down a path that you at this point can't divert from, and you have a mild paranoid episode on your hands. Now, I describe this concept to frame the other two topics I want to discuss. One professional, one spiritual. And we'll start with the professional. Another weird day. Imagine in January, someone tells you sometime before the beginning of next January, will have thrown you into a pond and forced you to learn how to swim. But it keeps not happening, so you start to relax, even though with each day it doesn't happen. You should be more tense, not more relaxed. And then the day comes, and you, your dumbass, relaxed, gets thrown into the pond unprepared. Now, fortunately, I have been preparing, but it still caught me by surprise. I saw Psychopath again, in public, and he started to stare me down, but I stared back at him, and I'm exhausted today, I'm worn out. But somewhere inside me, part of me is ready to hack somebody to pieces and eat them, which it's shadow development is such a weird thing because that's not me feeling that way. I don't have strength the strength to do that, but something in there does, or would, that you don't have any control over. Anyway, he looked away and acted like nothing happened, but later we met eyes again in different circumstances where I couldn't get my hands on him. Not that I would get my hands on him. I have little pussy hands and a pussy soul. And then he looked at me the way he wanted to look at me. Not like a human being, not even like a human being trying to be tough, but like an actual demon. A demon was in his face. And I don't know what that was intended to do. It feels symbolic, because if it was intended to intimidate, I know it did to part of me, but to another part of me, another part of me feels vindicated in its desire to take culinary advantage of a self-defense situation. And the symbolic part, to me, the part that I felt I was supposed to figure out, is if he hadn't done that, the fact that he did that he gave me that demon face, vindicating is the word. I feel vindicated in that part of me. But do you know what would have really psyched me out? Because I think this looking away in one circumstance and then giving me the true face in a different circumstance, that doesn't psych me out, that galvanizes me. What really would have psyched me out is if he would have stayed pleasant. I know he wears a mask, but if you would never have dropped it ever again outside that one time, I would second guess myself. I would feel more inclined to second guess myself, instead of the feeling I have now. And we joked about it quite a few videos ago about Literally Me's one of his best movies, the apotheosis of hatred, which is to truly hate someone and destroy them is to love them totally and indiscriminately. Have you ever thought about what you would do if everybody alive, especially the people you hate most, the sorts of people you hate most, all together, totally, accepted you and loved you and cared for you? How deep of shit would you be in? I was speaking with an INFJ the other day professionally, and he said it best. You need opposition like nutrition. Whether it's overt or covert, active or passive aggression, you need your ego to continue to exist, needs enemies. Because it creates a contrast and a competition. X versus Y. If someone is dangerous enough to love totally and indiscriminately, that contrast disappears. And I don't mean faking love. I mean loving totally and indiscriminately. It is truly the only way to defeat anyone. But I think that is right-hand path shit. Because you can say that, we've just said it all, but if we, or if the average person, tried to love totally and indiscriminately, they would get destroyed. Versus someone who's born to this, someone who really does this shit, can love and conquer. Kind of. Different terminology. Anyway, I've been thinking about that as this alternate power path, though the language would be different. It's a totally different sphere of understanding. And I just had horrible deja vu. We are deathwalking right now. Out in the real world, somewhere, we are collapsed on a street, shaking. Anyway, there was supposed to be this grand changing of the guard situation. But I never got trained formally to fulfill the duties I am, or would be, expected to fulfill. And it was unclear when it was going to happen. Like the incarnations of the Nerevarine. I don't think they use the word incarnation. This could be the moment it happens, but it's not until it is. Well, this time it was, and I was not prepared for it, but executive mode, the doom drum, God bless it, kicked in and we did it. It was crowded. Considering recent events, and on the channel we've discussed that and the role of a, quotes, corporate leader, someone wanted to take a bite out of somebody. And wouldn't you know it, Lil Skimmerlit is at the reins. And it felt like I was two people at one time. One detached and professional, the other coiled up like a snake, ready to strike at whichever one of these jackals tries me. And this is Dragon Ball. This feels like a different form from executive mode. This is a transformation I am unfamiliar with, but proved itself its first time out. Because I wasn't totally prepared for the professional responsibilities, I fumbled some things. Not terribly, but I made myself look vulnerable. And what do people do when they see you're having a hard time? Do they help you? Are they patient with you? No. Never. However, thanks to certain groups of jackals, I have been practicing verbal pressure/conflict tolerance and ugly barb exchanging, so I see what this dude is doing without freaking out. He's setting me up for something, and the crowd is parts dreading and parts exhilarated about seeing what's happening, or what's about to happen. But I don't think anyone was prepared for me to be prepared to be verbally ugly or physically confrontational. This is the dude who tried to get tough much earlier this year and got me to freeze up. Well, not only am I prepared to be verbally ugly, and I'm always very nervous about the actual show. Rehearsal in safe environments is one thing. In person with stakes is a completely different story. But it was kind of like that death threat. I was freaked out at that moment, but somehow I was able to do what I needed to do until everything was fine, and then I could freak out, which was an unexpected response to me. And even now that I've seen it, I'm still horrified at the idea that I might find myself in a situation like that again and not be able to do that. Regardless, something like that happened here. I'm ready to be verbally ugly, and I'm ready to accept the consequences of being verbally ugly. And if you want to suggest physicality, I have 2 pairs of boxing gloves with me. We have available an avenue for you to express what you'd like to express physically in reality, not just in abstract threatland. This is something we can do. And it's horribly unprofessional, but if that's the route you'd like to take, this is an option, and I am open to it. We can settle this. You can do to me what you'd like to do to me. Now, it's weird the way things turn out. All this is in my mind while I see him setting up his gambit, and then he says something and people start laughing. And he used my name, so I knew he was talking about me. I mean, that should be obvious, but it wasn't. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on, so I'm staring at him. And then the laughing stops. And then he says, "Come on, it's a joke." And I'm still trying to figure out what he meant by what he said, because it did not make sense to my brain. And there was this weird moment of, oh shit, Skimmerlit is actually autistic, and nobody's laughing, nobody's looking at either of us. He'll maintain eye contact only a little bit. Then he tries to explain the joke to me, and I'm still staring at him, and I say, "I don't get it." And then I keep staring at him. And because I'm the ones with the reins in this situation, I decide when we're done with a subject. So I keep staring at him, and he won't look at me, and nobody's looking at me, nobody's looking at any of us, and we sit there in that uncomfortable silence a good few moments. I'm sure to an observer it wouldn't have been that long, but it felt like an eternity, and I was so ready to get ugly with him. This was not an outcome I was expecting. I would have said something ugly if there were anything comprehensible to me in anything he said that I could have gotten ugly about. But I didn't get it, and I said I didn't get it, and then I made sure we sat in that discomfort longer than anyone was comfortable with, and then I moved us along. And can you guess the way the rest of the bullshit went? Professionally, quietly, respectfully, not like a fucking retarded mob of animals. And when we closed out, the mood was weird, because all I'm thinking about is, Jesus Christ, am I actually autistic? Did I not understand something that was plainly obvious to everybody else? Regardless of whether it was meant as a barb or meant as a compliment, even if it was a compliment, I know it wasn't one. But it seemed like everybody understood it, but I didn't. And then the big shocker. Some people socially, verbally rewarded me for my performance. I'm pretty sure I mentioned him once or twice, but I feel certain I never talked about him. The Marxist Nam-lifer guy. I have like a stable of Vietnam contacts I'm friendly with, which is a I don't know how that happened, but considering my interests, that is a point in life I'm proud of. And it is a nice little source of money. That hell week I had a couple months ago, that week was hell not just because of how many tarot orders were coming in, which, thank you, but it was also a bunch of old dudes paying me to do things in preparation for winter they can't do anymore. Now, this dude, this Marxist, was not one of them, and I haven't seen him for a while, but outside, he shook my hand, very pleased, and told me it's an honor. And that's flattering and suspicious, but I'm in such a weird mood, I'll take that at face value. Thank you. And there were some other people who were quietly aware of what was going on with the Sphinx situation, and they revealed themselves to be on my side the entire time. You know, thanks for supporting me after it's over. But again, weird mood. Take that at face value. Thank you. And I watched Apocalypse Now again a couple nights ago, so I've been in a weird mood to begin with. And I think Apocalypse Now is officially taking my number one spot. For the longest time, well, not the longest time, for a while now it has been Apocalypse Now and Blade Runner 2049 competing, but as much as I love Blade Runner, Apocalypse Now just takes it. Because every time you rewatch that movie, something else sticks out to you. This time, from Kurtz's letter to his son, in the dossier sequence, which is up on YouTube, it's about 10 minutes, look up Apocalypse Now, Kurtz dossier. Great stuff. The charges laid against me are outrageous. Clearly they are something, but I am above their petty, lying morality, and so I am beyond caring. This little executive episode feels like it feels like a little apotheosis. I came out, I think, ahead in this exchange because I was totally prepared, or if not totally prepared consciously, then totally prepared internally. I felt like a metal spring forced together and ready to pop. Prepared to disregard conduct, or the sort of conduct people say you are supposed to conduct yourself by. Because we are chained by petty, lying morality. Powerful people are not moral. Or, when they are moral, they're moral only in appearance, or only by convenience. They'll use morality until they don't need it, and then they'll discard it like it didn't matter, because it doesn't matter, and they'll be forgiven for it, or even praised for it, because nobody actually cares about morality. Paupers, commoners, slaves care about morality. At least when you look at it as an internal value guiding force. You didn't come up with it. You were told it was important, instructed it was important, in so many ways, for so long, you think this is your own thought. And because you are so dedicated to your petty lying morality, the bolder will take advantage of you forever, and you'll develop enough boldness to disregard your moral system enough to take advantage of others. Morality is a control mechanism. You'll notice if you follow traditional morality, whatever it is, strictly, it dissuades you from even beginning to learn how to savage people. And the true savages, the ones who climb or maintain their control from above, use or appear to use morality only insofar as they need to in order to fit in, to make people think these things do actually matter, when they don't. Certainly not to the people who control you. And this got me thinking about why there are no mainstream bastard religions or ideologies, or in RimWorld terms, ideologians. Why do they all adopt this facade of goodness and then try to convince you it's important while the people at the wheel know it isn't and disregard it completely? Well, I've been thinking about it. I think it's because the only reason people build instructive or organizing structures like religions or states is not to make lives better for people, it is to keep them in a docile, productive state that benefits whoever is at the helm. All of them. Do you think large groups of people, especially over time, would organize to accomplish any goal other than self-service in some fashion? No, that's not human nature. That's one of the reasons I think Christianity bugs me so much. And it would be a different religion if we were in a different culture, but the crucifixion as an event, as a symbol, is extraordinarily important to me as an ideal. That is the sort of love we were talking about in the beginning. However, it's been co-opted by dirty little humans to convince you to sacrifice for people who would not sacrifice for you. It's dirty. It's despicable. That's why these dirty little animals tried repeatedly to destroy Gnosticism. Now, I'm not a Gnostic, but if I had to choose one, quotes, organized religious structure to follow, that would be it. Because they have it. But we're on a different path. Our path, the straight path, you can find without a book. And I know that, and I believe in it, but damn, wouldn't it be nice to have a book anyway? Why isn't there one? Why isn't there a book, or why aren't there articles of bastardry? That's what we talked about months ago. And I understand this is another your thing, this is your path, you have to figure it out. That's probably partially why high-level mages seem to exist, or they write only to fuck with people who are trying to learn what they know. I'm so sick of magical texts that exist so someone who knows or has figured out what's going on to them can fuck with people who don't know what's going on. And I do love that, but Jesus Christ, it's tiring. And I've tried to sit down and write out my views on things, but it doesn't work. That's why I make videos. Make them in small parts so maybe one day someone can get the directions they need from me, but not all of them, to find their way. That's what Patrice did. That's what Saint O'Neill did. He never wrote a book. Everybody wanted him to write a book. He never wrote one. Yet, his teachings exist to help get you to a place you need to be so you can go in your own direction if you choose to. All by talking. I think that's one of the reasons, even in written texts like these, dialogues are so potent. It's all conversation, it's talking. You can't get it all at once. You can't put it all linearly in one book. It defies order. So I've been reviewing what constitutes a holy text or would constitute a holy text in our cosmology. And I think the two winners that I feel confident, if I had to present two things as holy texts outlining our point of view, they would be Apocalypse Now Redux and Beware by Death Grips. Because we talked about this not that long ago. You can't tell anyone anything. They'll never understand until they find the lesson themselves. And if in your spiritual point of view, you are the beast you worship, how are you going to know what you are if you're receiving directives or indoctrinating yourself with directives from someone else's shitty book or their shitty fucking whatevers? No, the closest thing to directives you should be opportunities for contemplation, reflection. We'll use Beware as an example. That song has everything. It has everything. Down to failing on your path and then retreating into structured, organized, and ultimately exploitative, but presently comforting religions. To praise, to accept defeat. You can climb up, or try to climb up on top of the mountain, try to reach the peak of you, and suffer in the flaying winds and fall down without retreating into coddling, thumb-sucking, ass-fucking prayer. You can stumble, and you can even totally fail without accepting defeat. There's a difference between being defeated and accepting defeat. And this doesn't come from this line, right? This is something we've been thinking about. And it's so funny, I was thinking about it while I was listening to it, and then I heard that line, or I was thinking about Beware as a potential holy text, and then that line came on, and it clicked. That's it. Beware is it, or one of the it's. It doesn't tell you, or texts like these don't tell you what to think. They present observation commentaries without directive and without explanation. So to an uninitiated person, it's not going to make any sense. It might sound cool either in a song or coming out of someone's mouth in a book. Might sound cool, but it doesn't really mean anything to them. But once you have broken ground, found that lesson through work and pain, and then spent the time to accept that lesson with work and pain, then you can hear that one line and understand that message has been gotten. They got it. They got it. Deathwalking. The symbol, the message is right in front of your face, but you don't get it until you're close to the edge. And I think Apocalypse Now is the same way. And I love people say theatrical is the best, and I think theatrical is... If you want just to show someone an entertaining movie, theatrical is the way to go, sure. People say Final Cut is the best cut for the overall experience. For me, Apocalypse is a meditative experience. It starts with, I have the dossier video downloaded on my phone. I'll start listening to that to meditate on it. Then that'll turn into a few more clips. Then that'll turn into, shit, why don't I just sit down and watch the movie? And then 3.5 hours have passed, and I have new ideas to chew on. The field has grown a fresh new crop. But and it's I understand people's frustrations with it, but that's why it works. It doesn't tell you anything. It might try to at some points, but I love the it's like sexual dissatisfaction throughout the entire movie. You're getting so close to something and then just not getting it. And then at the very end, you do reach that climax, except it is Willard and Lance who have climaxed, and you don't get to be part of it until you know your way into it. And the thing I wanted to mention, the fact, or what makes me feel confident Apocalypse Now understands this, particularly the Redux version, is Dennis Hopper's character. He tries to explain to Willard Kurtz's philosophy in words and framing it as if he totally understands it, and then Kurtz calls him a mutt and makes him leave. And Kurtz doesn't say, I've read horrors you've read, it's seen, it's experience. And you're not going to put those things, you might be able to demarcate them with words, but you aren't going to communicate that understanding in words. Especially when the grand explanation is coming from some dipshit who hasn't experienced anything, but is claiming he knows everything. Dirty mutts those people are. The explainers. You know, and you know for yourself, or you don't know anything. And even if you feel some sort of spiritual connection with another person who knows things, they know their things and you know your things. The paths are similar, but never identical, especially in terms of an individual's knowing. And that's about it. If you want, or if we needed to explain what we are, we would do it with Beware and with Apocalypse Now Redux. And if a person finds their way into their understanding something similar to what we understand, good. And if not, then they weren't born to that path anyway. Because again, you can find your way without a book, but, markers are helpful. No summary this time. I'm not entirely sure how all these are connected, but they are. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.